Sinful Temptation. Episode 2. Moving in. 3 weeks had passed since the wedding. 3 weeks of Isabella trying, and failing, to get Dante Blackwood out of her mind. She'd replayed that night 1,000 times. His whispered threats. His intense stare. The way his finger had traced down her arm, leaving fire in its wake. The promise in his voice when he said he would ruin her. She'd been waiting for him to make good on that promise. Instead, she'd gotten radio silence. No calls. No texts. Nothing. It was driving her crazy. Now, standing in front of the Blackwood mansion with 2 suitcases and a condemned apartment behind her, Isabella realized the universe had a twisted sense of humor. Her building had been evacuated due to structural damage. Emergency. No warning. And her mother had immediately insisted she move into the mansion. Just temporarily, darling, Elena had said over the phone. Until you find a new place. There's plenty of room. Plenty of room. And Dante lived there too. Isabella stared up at the massive estate, all marble columns and enormous windows that probably cost more than her college tuition. This was a mistake. She should find a hotel, crash with friends, sleep in her car if necessary. Anything but this. Are you going to stand there all day, or are you coming in? Dante's deep voice came from above. Isabella looked up to find him leaning against the second-floor balcony railing, looking down at her with those penetrating gray eyes. He was dressed in black workout clothes that clung to every muscle of his powerful body. His hair was damp with sweat, his chest rising and falling from exertion. He'd obviously just finished at the home gym. God, he was beautiful. Unfairly, devastatingly beautiful. I didn't know you'd be here, Isabella called up, her voice steadier than she felt. I live here. His tone was flat, emotionless. Like she was a stranger and not the woman he'd promised to ruin 3 weeks ago. Fine. 2 could play that game. Isabella grabbed her suitcases and walked through the front door like she owned the place. The interior was even more impressive, sweeping staircases, crystal chandeliers, art that belonged in museums. Dante descended the stairs with predatory grace, each step deliberate and controlled. When he reached the bottom, he didn't maintain a polite distance. He moved into her space, close enough that she could smell him, masculine sweat mixed with something darker, more intoxicating. Let me make the rules clear, he said, his voice low and dangerous. Since we're going to be living under the same roof. I'm listening. Isabella lifted her chin, refusing to be intimidated. Rule 1. Stay out of my way. His gray eyes bored into hers. Rule 2. Don't walk around half-dressed. Rule 3. Don't bring men here. Isabella's temper flared. Excuse me. You don't get to tell me what to do. My house, my rules. It's Richard and my mother's house. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Sweetheart, Richard owns the company. I own everything else, including this house. He lives here because I allow it. The casual display of power should have been off-putting. Instead, it sent a forbidden thrill straight between her thighs. Then maybe I should find somewhere else to stay, she said, even though they both knew she had nowhere else to go. Maybe you should. He moved closer, crowding her against her suitcases. But you won't. Because you're broke, your mother would be disappointed, and you hate disappointing people. How did he know that? They'd barely spoken. What's your problem with me? Isabella demanded. His jaw tightened. For a moment, she saw something raw flash in his eyes, hunger, conflict, rage. Then the mask slipped back into place. My problem is that you're 23. Beautiful, and living in my house. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. My problem is that you look at me like you want me to take you right here on this marble floor. And sweetheart. His hand came up, his thumb brushing across her lower lip. I'm really good at giving women what they want. But I'm even better at making them regret it. Her breath caught. His touch was electric, sending shockwaves through her entire body. I don't, she started. Yes, you do. His eyes darkened. But here's the thing, Isabella. I don't cross certain lines anymore. Family is off limits. So do yourself a favor and hate me. It'll make living together a lot easier. He grabbed her suitcases like they weighed nothing and headed up the stairs. East Wing, he called over his shoulder. Not the West Wing. That's my space. You don't go there. Ever. Then he was gone, leaving Isabella trembling with anger and unfulfilled desire. 2 days later, midnight. Isabella couldn't sleep. Again. It was past 2 in the morning, and she'd been tossing and turning for hours, hyper-aware that Dante was somewhere in this massive house. She'd heard him leave around 10, probably to meet some woman. The thought made her irrationally jealous. She threw off the covers and decided to raid the kitchen. Maybe wine would help. Or whiskey. Definitely alcohol. The house was dark and silent as she padded downstairs in her sleep clothes, a thin tank top and tiny shorts that barely covered anything. She'd forgotten Dante's stupid rule about not walking around half-dressed. Not that she cared. The kitchen was a chef's dream. Isabella was reaching for a wine glass when the lights suddenly flicked on. Breaking rule 2 already. She spun around to find Dante leaning against the doorframe, still fully dressed in the dark jeans and leather jacket he'd left in. His hair was messy, his eyes dark and hungry. He was looking at her like he wanted to devour her whole. "I thought you were out," she said, hating how breathless she sounded. "I was. Came back early." His gaze traveled slowly down her body, lingering on her chest where her peaks were clearly visible through the thin fabric. Lower, to her bare legs, the curve of her hips. "Christ, Isabella. Are you trying to make this impossible?" "I'm trying to get some wine." She turned back to the cabinet, hyper-aware of his eyes on her backside. "Unless that's against your precious rules too." She heard him move, felt the heat of him behind her. His hands landed on the counter on either side of her, caging her in. His chest pressed against her back, and she felt every hard plane of his body, including the thick length of him pressing against her lower back. He was aroused. Fully, undeniably aroused. "You want to know what the real rule is?" His breath was hot against her ear. "The real rule is that I need to stay the hell away from you. Because every time I see you, I think about all the ways I want to have you. Slow and gentle until you're begging. Then rough and dirty until you forget your own name." Isabella's core clenched. Heat flooded between her thighs, making her wet and aching. "I think about bending you over this counter," he continued, his voice rough with need. "Making you scream while I take you from behind. I think about how tight your kitten would be, how sweet you'd taste on my tongue." She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the heat of him, the promise in his words. "Then why don't you?" The words left her mouth before she could stop them. His hand fisted in her hair, tugging her head back so she was forced to look up at him. His eyes were molten silver, his jaw clenched with restraint. "Because you deserve better than a man who doesn't believe in love. Better than someone who'll use you and leave you." His voice was tortured. "Better than me, Isabella. What if I don't want better?" Something in him snapped. His mouth crashed down on hers in a brutal, claiming kiss. It was nothing like she'd imagined, it was harder, more desperate, more consuming. His tongue invaded her mouth, tasting her, owning her. Isabella moaned and turned in his arms, pressing herself against him. His hands were everywhere, in her hair, on her waist, cupping her backside and lifting her onto the counter. He stepped between her thighs, grinding against her core, and she gasped at the friction. "This is wrong," he growled against her lips. "I don't care," she panted. His hand slid under her tank top, finding her bare chest. When his thumbs brushed over her sensitive peaks, she cried out. "So responsive," he murmured, pinching gently. "I wonder how wet you are right now. Should I check?" His hand slid into her shorts, and they both groaned when he found her soaked. "Drenched," he said with dark satisfaction. "All for me, princess." "Yes," she whimpered. He worked one finger inside her tight heat, then two, and Isabella thought she might die from pleasure. His thumb found her sensitive butt and circled, building her higher and higher. "That's it, baby. Let go for me." She shattered with a cry, her body convulsing around his fingers. He worked her through it, drawing out every wave. Before she could catch her breath, he withdrew his hand and stepped back, putting distance between them. "That's all you get tonight," he said, his voice rough. Isabella stared at him, dazed and desperate. What? You wanted a taste of what I can do. There it is. His eyes were hard despite the obvious bulge straining his jeans. Now go back to your room and think about whether you really want to play this game with me. Dante. Go, Isabella, before I change my mind and take you right here. She slid off the counter on shaky legs and fled, his dark laughter following her up the stairs. Back in her room, Isabella touched her lips where he'd kissed her, her body still humming with unsatisfied need. This was just the beginning. She knew it with absolute certainty. Dante Blackwood had drawn first blood. Now it was her turn.